Why did a small city built on sand become one of the most powerful technology hubs on Earth? Why do thousands of startups emerge from this place every year? And how did a tiny settlement near the ancient port of Jaffa transform into a global innovation powerhouse? To understand the answer, we have to go back more than a century. Back to a time when the skyline of Tel Aviv had no glass towers, no venture capital firms, no tech campuses, no billion-dollar startups. There was only sand, long stretches of quiet sand along the Mediterranean coast. The wind moved slowly across the dunes. The sound of waves breaking against the shore was often the only noise in the area. To the south stood the ancient port city of Jaffa, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. For thousands of years, traders, sailors, and travelers passed through Jaffa's harbor. Empires rose and fell around it. Civilizations changed, but the sandy land just north of the port remained mostly empty, almost untouched. At the beginning of the 20th century, this region was still part of the powerful Ottoman Empire. Life in Jaffa was crowded. The streets were narrow. Markets were busy and noisy. Homes were packed closely together. For many residents, the city felt alive, but also overwhelming. Among the people living there were small groups of Jewish families who had arrived from different parts of Europe and the Middle East. They shared a dream of building something new, something modern, a neighborhood with wider streets, better planning, cleaner spaces, and a different future. In 1909, 66 families gathered together on the empty sand dunes north of Jaffa. They stood in the open desert wind, looking at the empty land in front of them. There were no buildings, no roads, no infrastructure, only sand. But in their minds, they could already see a city. To divide the land fairly, they came up with a creative solution: seashells. White shells had the names of families written on them. Gray shells carried the numbers of land plots. Each family drew 2 shells, one for their name, one for their future property. It was a simple lottery held on open sand. But that small moment would quietly begin the story of one of the most innovative cities in the modern world. The new neighborhood was first called Ahuzat Bayit, but not long after, it received a new name, Tel Aviv. The name itself carried deep meaning. The word Tel refers to an ancient mound formed by layers of civilizations built on top of one another over centuries. Means spring, renewal, new beginnings. Together, the name symbolized something powerful: rebuilding ancient heritage in a modern way, a new beginning rising from the past. In its earliest years, Tel Aviv was small, very small. The houses were simple, roads were basic, resources were limited, life was not easy. But something important was happening. People kept arriving. Families came from Europe. Others came from the Middle East and North Africa. They brought different languages, different cultures, different professions. Merchants opened small shops. Teachers started schools. Builders began planning streets and neighborhoods. Slowly, the small settlement started growing. Then history shifted dramatically. After the end of World War I, the political map of the region changed. The Ottoman Empire collapsed. Control of the area passed to Britain under what became known as the British Mandate for Palestine. During this period, immigration increased significantly. Many newcomers were educated professionals escaping political instability and discrimination in Europe. Engineers, architects, scientists, doctors, entrepreneurs. They didn't arrive only looking for safety. They arrived with ideas about building a modern society, a society based on education, innovation, and economic independence. For many of them, Tel Aviv became the place where those ideas could become reality. By the 1920s and 1930s, the city was expanding quickly. New streets stretched farther north. Neighborhoods appeared across the dunes. Businesses multiplied. The atmosphere felt different from older cities in the region. Tel Aviv felt young, energetic, experimental. People here were willing to try new ideas. And one of the most visible changes came from architecture. Several Jewish architects who had studied in Europe arrived in the city after training at the famous Bauhaus design school in Germany. They brought with them a revolutionary vision of architecture. Buildings that were simple, functional, modern. Instead of heavy decoration, They designed clean white structures, flat roofs, wide balconies, large windows allowing sunlight to flood into rooms. Within a few years, hundreds of these buildings appeared across the city. The unique architectural style transformed Tel Aviv's identity. Eventually, the district became so significant that the international organization UNESCO recognized it as a World Heritage Site. Today, it is often called the White City, but the architecture was more than just visual design. It represented something deeper. A city willing to embrace modern ideas. A city willing to experiment. A city willing to build the future. As Tel Aviv expanded, its economic importance also grew. Factories opened. Banks started operating. Cultural institutions formed. Writers and intellectuals gathered in cafes. Artists discussed ideas late into the night. Philosophy, politics, science. The future. Tel Aviv was no longer just a settlement. It was becoming a cultural and economic center. Then came one of the most important moments in modern history. On May 14, 1948, inside a modest building on Rothschild Boulevard, the leader David Ben-Gurion announced the establishment of the modern state of Israel. The declaration marked the end of the British Mandate and the birth of a new country, but independence also brought immediate conflict. The announcement triggered the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The young nation faced enormous challenges, security threats, limited resources, economic uncertainty. Yet despite the difficulties, something remarkable began taking shape. Israel realized it could not rely on natural resources. The country had little oil, limited water, and a small domestic market. So its leaders focused on something else: human knowledge. Education became one of the nation's highest priorities. Universities expanded. Research institutions developed. Technical training programs received strong support. The idea was simple, but powerful. If the country lacked natural resources, it would invest in intellectual resources instead, and this philosophy would shape the future of Tel Aviv in ways no one could have predicted. Just north of the city, one of the nation's most important academic institutions began growing rapidly: Tel Aviv University. Students there studied physics, mathematics, engineering, computer science. Over time, graduates from these programs would become key players in building Israel's technology industry. Another major institution shaping the country's technological future was the Technion, Israel Institute of Technology located in Haifa. Although not inside Tel Aviv itself, many of its graduates eventually moved to the Tel Aviv region. There they launched companies, joined startups, or developed new technologies. Over the decades, Israel built a reputation for producing highly skilled engineers and scientists. But education was only part of the story. Another powerful influence came from an unexpected place: the military. Most young citizens served in the military, and some were selected for highly specialized technological units. One of the most famous was Unit 8200, an elite intelligence and cyber technology division. Inside this unit, young recruits worked on advanced fields like encryption, software development, data analysis, and cybersecurity. The work environment was intense, fast-paced, highly demanding. Young people in their early 20s were responsible for solving complex technological problems, under pressure, with limited time. By the time they finished their service, many had gained years of experience working with advanced systems. When these individuals returned to civilian life, many didn't look for ordinary jobs. They started companies. And where did they go? Tel Aviv. The city quickly became the meeting point for ambitious entrepreneurs. A powerful cycle began forming. Universities trained engineers. Military units gave them advanced technological experience. After their service, they launched startups. Investors funded those startups. Successful founders inspired the next generation. And slowly, the world began to notice. Tel Aviv was no longer just a city on the Mediterranean coast. It was becoming one of the most dynamic innovation ecosystems on Earth.